The rain battered the windshield of the cab, blurring the neon lights of Portland's downtown into a kaleidoscope of despair. I clutched my side, blood seeping through my fingers, each breath a knife in my ribs. Ethan, my boyfriend of 3 years, sat beside me, his face pale, eyes darting away from mine, as if my pain was a truth he couldn't face. "Hold on, Lucas," the driver shouted, weaving through traffic toward Mercy General. My vision swam, but Ethan's silence cut deeper than the wound. We'd been at a bar, celebrating his promotion, when a drunk hurled a bottle that caught me square in the abdomen. The glass shattered, slicing through my shirt and skin, and chaos erupted. Ethan had frozen, staring as I crumpled, his hands trembling but never reaching for me. Now, in the cab, his distance felt like betrayal. At the hospital, nurses rushed me into the ER, their voices sharp and urgent. Ethan trailed behind, his footsteps hesitant. "You'll be fine," he muttered, more to himself than to me, before disappearing into the waiting room. I was wheeled into surgery, the anesthesia pulling me under like a tide, my last thought of Ethan's cold eyes. When I woke, groggy and aching, the room was dim, save for the soft beep of monitors. My hand reached for Ethan's, expecting his familiar grip, but the chair beside my bed was empty. A nurse, her badge reading Clara, checked my chart. "Your friend left a few hours ago," she said gently. "Said he'd be back, but he hasn't." I stared at the ceiling, the weight of abandonment heavier than the bandages on my side. Ethan, the man who'd promised forever under a starlit hike in the Cascades, had left me alone in a hospital bed. My phone on the bedside table held no messages, no missed calls, just silence. The next morning, sunlight filtered through the blinds, and a new face entered the room. Dr. Noah Callahan, his badge red, a young doctor with tousled blonde hair and eyes that held a quiet intensity. He was maybe 30, his white coat slightly rumpled, as if he'd been up all night saving lives. "Lucas Rivera, right?" he said, his voice warm, like a melody cutting through my fog. "I'm your attending. How's the pain?" I shrugged, wincing. "It's not the wound that hurts most." His brow furrowed, but he didn't press. Instead, he sat, checking my chart with a focus that felt personal, not clinical. "You took a nasty hit," he said. "The surgery went well, but you'll need to stay a few days. Any family we can call?" I shook my head. My parents, back in Albuquerque, hadn't spoken to me since I came out at 19. Ethan was my family, or so I thought. Noah's eyes softened, catching the unspoken weight. "Well, you've got me and the team here," he said, a small smile breaking through. "We're pretty good company." Over the next day, Noah checked in often, his visits a lifeline in the sterile quiet. He'd linger, asking about my job as a graphic designer, my favorite hiking trails, even my terrible taste in reality TV. His laughter, bright and unguarded, chipped away at the ache Ethan left behind. But every night, I'd check my phone, hoping for a text, a call, anything. Nothing came. By day 3, the hospital felt like a cage, my thoughts a loop of Ethan's absence. Why hadn't he come back? Was he scared? Ashamed? Or had he never loved me the way I loved him? I was sketching in a notebook, a habit to calm my nerves, when Noah walked in, holding a tray of cafeteria jello. "Thought you might need a gourmet meal," he joked, setting it down. I managed a weak smile. "You're spoiling me, document." He glanced at my sketch, a half-finished drawing of the Portland skyline. "That's incredible," he said, genuine awe in his voice. "You've got serious talent, Lucas." For the first time in days, I felt seen not as a patient but as me. Our eyes met, and something unspoken passed between us. a spark I wasn't ready to name. But it was there, fragile and warm, like the first light after a storm. That evening, Clara handed me a note. It was from Ethan, slipped under the door while I slept. "I'm sorry, Lucas. I can't do this anymore. Take care." My heart shattered, each word a shard embedding deeper. I crumpled the note, tears burning my eyes, and threw it across the room. Noah, entering for his rounds, froze at the sight. "Lucas?" he said softly, stepping closer. "What happened?" I couldn't speak, couldn't breathe past the betrayal. Noah didn't push. Instead, he sat beside me, his presence steady, grounding. "You don't have to tell me," he said, "but I'm here." And somehow, in that moment, I believed him. The hospital's fluorescent lights buzzed faintly, a constant hum that matched the static in my mind. Ethan's note lay crumpled in the trash, but its words echoed. I can't do this anymore. 3 years of shared mornings, whispered promises, and quiet nights, gone in a single sentence. Noah's visits became the rhythm of my days. He'd slip in between rounds, sometimes with a bad hospital coffee, sometimes with a quip about the weather. "Portland's doing its usual cry fest out there," he'd say, nodding toward the rain-streaked window. His humor was a lifeline, pulling me from the quicksand of Ethan's abandonment. But I kept my guard up, afraid to lean into the warmth of his attention. Trust, once broken, doesn't mend easily. On day 4, Noah caught me staring at my phone, still hoping for a message that wouldn't come. "You're torturing yourself," he said, not unkindly, as he adjusted my for. "Whoever's not here, they're missing out on someone pretty remarkable." I snorted, deflecting. "You don't even know me, document. I know you draw like you're pouring your soul onto paper," he said, nodding at my sketchbook. "I know you've got a laugh that makes this place feel less like a morgue. That's a start." His words landed softly, but they stirred something I wasn't ready to face. I changed the subject, asking about his life instead. Noah hesitated, then shared fragments. Raised in a small Oregon town, med school in Seattle, and a love for jazz that he indulged at local clubs on rare nights off. "I'm not great at downtime," he admitted, a sheepish grin lighting his face. "Work's my escape." "Escape from what?" I asked, curiosity slipping past my walls. He paused, his smile fading. "Expectations, mostly. Family, society, you know how it goes." I did. Coming out hadn't just cost me my parents. It had reshaped my world, forcing me to carve a place where I could exist unapologetically. I wondered what Noah's story was, but before I could ask, a nurse called him away. That night, unable to sleep, I sketched again. A jazz club, smoky and warm, with a figure at the piano who looked suspiciously like Noah. The act of drawing grounded me, but my thoughts kept drifting to Ethan. Had I missed the signs? Was I too much, too loud, too open? To me? The questions gnawed, leaving me raw. The next morning, Noah arrived with a small, battered book, a collection of Walt Whitman poems. "Found this in the break room," he said, handing it to me. "Thought you might like it. Whitman's got a way of making sense of the mess." I flipped through the pages, landing on Song of Myself. The words felt like a mirror to my fractured heart, bold and unashamed. "Thanks," I said, my voice thick. "This means a lot." Noah's eyes held mine, steady and kind. "You're not alone, Lucas. Not here." His words lingered, a quiet promise. But doubt crept in. What if he was just being kind? A doctor doing his job? I pushed the thought away, focusing on the book, the poems, the faint hope that I could rebuild what Ethan had shattered. By day 6, my wound was healing, but my heart felt like an open sore. Noah suggested a short walk down the hall to stretch my legs. He steadied me as I shuffled, his hand warm on my arm. "You're tougher than you look," he teased, but his gaze was soft, searching. We paused by a window overlooking the city. Portland sparkled under a rare clear sky, the Willamette River glinting in the distance. "You ever feel like you're running out of time to figure it all out?" I asked, the words slipping out before I could stop them. Noah leaned against the wall, his expression thoughtful. "Every day. But then I meet someone like you, and I think maybe there's still time." His words hung between us, heavy with possibility. For the first time since Ethan's note, I felt a flicker of something new, not just hope, but desire. To be seen, to be wanted, to be enough. But fear clawed at me. What if I let Noah in only to be left again? The hospital hallway smelled of antiseptic and regret, a sterile reminder of how quickly life could unravel. I was due for discharge soon, but the thought of leaving, of returning to an apartment filled with Ethan's ghost, made my chest tighten. Noah's presence, though, was a counterweight, his quiet strength pulling me towards something I hadn't dared hope for. A new beginning. He started bringing small gifts, a playlist of jazz tracks, a sketch pencil he'd borrowed from the nurse's station. Each gesture felt deliberate, like he was building a bridge between us. One afternoon, as he checked my stitches, I caught him humming one of the songs from his playlist, a soft, soulful tune. "You're really into this stuff, huh?" I said, half teasing. Noah grinned, his eyes crinkling. "Jazz is freedom. It's messy, raw, real. Like life, you know?" I nodded, thinking of my own messy life. "Yeah, but sometimes the mess feels too much." He sat on the edge of my bed, closer than usual. "Then you find the rhythm in it. You don't have to have it all figured out, Lucas. Just keep playing." His words struck a chord, and for a moment, I let myself imagine a life where I wasn't defined by Ethan's absence. But the fear lingered. What if Noah was just a fleeting note, a melody that would fade once I left this hospital? That evening, Clara, the nurse, shared a rumor. Ethan had been seen at a bar downtown, laughing with someone new. The news hit like a punch, confirming what I dreaded. He hadn't just left me, he'd moved on. I sat in the dark, Whitman's book open but unread, my sketchbook abandoned. The pain wasn't just emotional. It felt physical, a weight crushing my chest. Noah found me like that, curled into myself. Without a word, he pulled a chair close and sat, his presence a quiet anchor. "You don't have to talk," he said. "But I'm not going anywhere." I broke then, tears spilling over. "He didn't even care," I whispered. 3 years, and he just walked away. Noah's hand found mine, warm and steady. "Some people can't handle the real stuff, Lucas. The hard moments. But that's on them, not you." His touch sent a jolt through me, electric and terrifying. I pulled back, afraid of what it meant. "You don't get it," I said, voice raw. "I thought he was my forever. What if I'm just broken?" Noah's eyes darkened with something like anger, but his voice stayed gentle. "You're not broken. You're human. And anyone who can't see that doesn't deserve you." The words hung heavy, and I wanted to believe them. But trust felt like a leap off a cliff, and I wasn't sure I could survive another fall. The next day, Noah took me to the hospital's rooftop garden, a small oasis of greenery overlooking the city. The air was crisp, the sky a rare blue. He pointed out landmarks, Mount Hood in the distance, the bridges spanning the river. "This city's got a way of healing you if you let it," he said. I watched him, the way the sunlight caught his hair, the easy grace in his movements. "Why are you so kind to me?" I asked, the question spilling out. He turned, his gaze steady. Because I see you, Lucas. Not just the guy in the hospital bed, but you. And I like what I see. My heart raced, caught between fear and longing. I wanted to reach for him, to close the distance, but the ghost of Ethan's betrayal held me back. Instead, I asked, "What's your story, Noah? Why do you care so much?" He looked away, his jaw tightening. "Let's just say I know what it's like to feel like you're not enough." The admission hung between us, a thread connecting our wounds. I wanted to know more, but something in his expression told me to wait. So we stood there, two broken people under a wide sky, not quite ready to mend but closer than before. Discharge day loomed, a deadline that filled me with dread. The hospital had become a strange sanctuary. Noah, its beating heart. But the real world waited, and with it, the life Ethan had left in ruins. My apartment, once a haven of shared dreams, now felt like a museum of betrayal. I didn't know how to step back into it or if I could. Noah sensed my unease. During his rounds, he'd linger longer, his questions less about my stitches and more about my plans. "Got a place to crash?" he asked one morning, his tone casual but his eyes sharp. "My apartment," I said, forcing a shrug. "It's fine." He raised an eyebrow. "Fine's not exactly a glowing review." I laughed, but it was hollow. "It's just a lot of memories." He nodded, understanding more than I'd said. "You don't have to go back right away. There's a shelter nearby, or you could crash with a friend." I didn't have friends close enough to impose on. Ethan had been my world, and I'd let other connections fade. "I'll figure it out," I said, avoiding his gaze. That afternoon, Noah brought me to the hospital's art therapy room, a small space filled with paints and canvases. "Thought you might want to draw something that's not in that sketchbook," he said, handing me a canvas. "No pressure, just create." I hesitated, then picked up a brush. The colors bled together, a chaotic swirl of blues and reds, mirroring the storm in my chest. Noah sat nearby, sketching something of his own, a clumsy but earnest attempt at a cityscape. "You're terrible at this," I teased, peeking at his work. He laughed, unoffended. "Yeah, well, I save lives, not art galleries." We painted in silence, the act grounding me in a way I hadn't expected. When I finished, my canvas held a figure standing at a crossroads, one path bright, the other shadowed. Noah studied it, his expression unreadable. "That's you, isn't it?" he said softly, "deciding where to go." I nodded, throat tight. "I don't know which path to take." He set his sketch aside, his eyes locking onto mine. "You don't have to choose alone." The words felt like a promise, but I was still too raw to trust them. That night, I dreamed of Ethan, his face cold and distant, and woke with a start, my heart pounding. Noah was there on a late shift, checking my chart. "Bad dream?" he asked, sitting beside me. "Yeah," I admitted. "I keep seeing him, like he's still here, haunting me." Noah's hand rested on the bed, close but not touching. "He's not here, Lucas. You are. And you're stronger than you think." I wanted to believe him, but fear was a heavy anchor. What if I let someone in again, and they leave? Noah's gaze was steady, unflinching. "Then you find someone who stays." The next day, he shared more of his story, haltingly, as if unearthing buried treasure. He'd grown up in a conservative town, his parents expecting a straight, perfect son to carry their legacy. Coming out to them had been a battle, one he'd won at the cost of their approval. "I haven't spoken to them in years," he said, his voice low. "But I found my own family. Friends, colleagues, people who see me." His honesty cracked something open in me. I told him about my own coming out, The way my parents' rejection had left scars I still carried. We talked for hours, the hospital fading away, until it was just us, two men sharing truths in the quiet of a sterile room. As discharge day approached, Noah gave me a card with his number. "In case you need a friend," he said, his smile shy but warm. I tucked it into my wallet, my fingers trembling. The spark between us was undeniable, but I wasn't ready to name it. Not yet. Leaving the hospital felt like stepping into a void. The cab ride to my apartment was silent, the city a blur of gray and green. Noah's card burned a hole in my wallet, a lifeline I was too scared to use. My apartment was exactly as I'd left it. Ethan's books on the shelf, his jacket slung over a chair. I stood frozen, the weight of his absence crushing. I tried to reclaim the space, boxing up Ethan's things, but each item was a memory. The mug he used every morning, the scarf he'd worn on our first date. I sank to the floor, sobbing, until the light faded outside. My phone buzzed, a text from Noah, just checking in. "You okay?" I stared at the screen, fingers hovering. Finally, I typed, "Not really. Can we talk?" He called within minutes, his voice a bomb. "Want me to come over? I'm off in an hour." I hesitated, then gave him my address. When he arrived, he looked different out of his white coat. Jeans, a soft sweater, his hair slightly messy. He carried a takeout bag from a nearby diner. "Figured you might not have eaten," he said, setting it on the counter. We ate in silence at first, the comfort of his presence easing the ache. Then he noticed the boxes. "You're packing him up," he said, not a question. "Yeah," I said, trying to. He helped, his hands gentle as he folded Ethan's clothes, his presence making the task bearable. We talked about everything and nothing, his favorite jazz club, my love for late-night sketching, the way Portland's rain felt like a second skin. When we finished, the apartment felt lighter, like I could breathe again. Noah stayed late, sitting on my couch, a beer in hand. "You're gonna be okay, Lucas," he said, his eyes steady. "Not today, maybe not tomorrow, but you will." I wanted to believe him, but doubt lingered. What if I'm not enough? He leaned closer, his voice low. "You're more than enough, and anyone who can't see that is blind." The air between us crackled, charged with something new. I wanted to kiss him, to feel the warmth of his lips, but fear held me back. Instead, I reached for his hand, my fingers brushing his. He didn't pull away. Over the next week, Noah became a constant. He'd text during breaks, drop by with coffee, or invite me to walk along the river. Each moment built something fragile but real. One evening, at a jazz club he loved, the music swirling around us, I caught him watching me, his eyes soft and unguarded. "What?" I asked, suddenly shy. "You're smiling," he said. "First time I've seen it reach your eyes." I blushed, the warmth spreading through me. "Your trouble, Noah Callahan." He laughed, leaning closer. "The good kind, I hope." That night, as we walked back to my place, the city alive around us, I felt a shift. Ethan's shadow was fading, replaced by Noah's light. But I was still scared, scared of falling, of breaking, of losing again. Yet with Noah beside me, the fear felt smaller, manageable. Weeks passed, and Noah became my anchor. We'd meet after his shifts, sharing late-night dinners or quiet walks through Portland's parks. My apartment, once a shrine to Ethan, was now filled with new memories. A sketch I'd drawn for Noah, a playlist he'd made for me. But the fear of opening my heart lingered, a shadow I couldn't shake. One evening, Noah invited me to his place, a small loft overlooking the city. It was cozy, cluttered with books and records, a guitar leaning against the wall. "You play?" I asked, surprised. "Badly," he admitted, grinning. "But it's fun." He played a few chords, the notes clumsy but earnest, and I laughed, the sound freer than it had been in months. We cooked dinner together, pasta with too much garlic, and talked about our dreams. I wanted to open an art studio. He wanted to start a free clinic for underserved communities. His passion lit up the room, and I found myself falling, hard and fast. As we sat on his couch, the city lights twinkling outside, Noah turned to me. "Lucas, I need to tell you something." My heart clenched, expecting the worst. "What?" "I'm falling for you," he said, his voice steady but vulnerable. "I know you're still healing, and I don't want to push, but I want you to know." The words stole my breath. I wanted to say it back, to let myself fall, but fear choked me. "Noah, I am scared." He took my hand, his touch warm and sure. "I know, and I'll wait as long as it takes." That night, I stayed, curled against him on the couch, the weight of his arm a promise. For the first time, I felt safe, not just from the world but from my own doubts. Noah wasn't Ethan, he was here, real, unwavering. Months later, I stood in a small gallery, my art on the walls, Noah by my side. The opening was small, just friends and locals, but it felt like a triumph. My latest piece, a vibrant canvas of two figures under a starry sky, was dedicated to him. On the frame, a small handwritten note read, "Love heals all," a nod to the moment that had changed everything. As the crowd mingled, Noah pulled me aside, his eyes bright. "I'm proud of you," he said, his voice thick with emotion. I kissed him then, soft and sure, in front of everyone. The fear was still there, a quiet whisper, but it was drowned out by the certainty of his love. Ethan had abandoned me, but Noah had stayed, healing not just my wounds but my heart. We walked home together, hand in hand, the city alive around us. The stars above were bright, a reminder that even after the darkest nights, light could find its way through. And with Noah, I knew I'd never face the darkness alone again.